hogs a few generations down, because I don't think there's any such thing as a feral is a wild hog here in Arkansas. I think pretty much all of them, or maybe all of them indeed, are. Senator Clark is at the table with us, and he's making fun of me. So a feral hog is basically domestic hogs that have run wild for long enough, and several generations down, they become rather different animals, but they're still pigs.
Yeah. Let's actually bring Senator Alan Clark in, because I know I saw a Facebook, I think it was a Facebook post.
Yes.
Senator Alan Clark from Senate District 13. That's off the top of my head.
Yep.
Welcome back to the program.
Got it right.
So your biggest project, obviously, this session. First of all, how's the session going for you? I mean,
Really, really well, actually.
It's going good for you.
Yes. I mean, it's like the movie Magnificent Seven. The guy that jumped off the skyscraper in St. Louis that was, I think they said 7 stories tall, and they heard him when he passed the second floor saying, "So far, so good."
Okay. So the definition of good, really well, is pretty relative.
It's going to depend how we finish, because we filed these child welfare reform bills early, or lots of them early, and we haven't run them because we have been meeting literally hundreds of hours with all the agencies, and no one would have believed that we would have come up with bills that we all agreed to. So actually, so far, we've had no opposition. I've had Misha Martin, Director of DCFS, testifying and helping present our bills. And
That's
they're good bills.
That's good.
And we didn't, again, it was not a matter of giving things up. It was a matter of wording more than anything else. That everyone, I know a lot of people have thought of just being nice, but everyone involved cares about kids. And in a lot of cases, a lot of this is us helping them to do what they want to do, which is help kids. It's easy to villainize people, especially when they've done some things like happened with the Stanley family. But on the other hand, I would hate to be a judge in this system, just because, you're dealing with people's kids, you're dealing with people's families. And a lot of times, if you make the best decision in the world, you still got half the people in the courtroom mad at you, and not just mad. You're talking about a deep down emotional anger when you're dealing with people's children. So, but we've got some bills coming through. The first one passed yesterday. SB 15. We've got some more coming through that we believe that will really be good for the system.
Just briefly remind our audience, listening across the state, remind them, this is because of the Joint Performance Review Committee. You guys found some real problems with the Department of Childhood and Family Services, whether it's, it just seemed like the government was protecting itself more than the kids.
Oh, absolutely. There's plenty of criticism to be leveled. I have to thank the Stanley family and what they went through to have pulled me into it. If they hadn't been in my district, I wouldn't have paid that much attention. And then that, as I found that actually things weren't being done the way they should be done, and had a very hard way to go. I spent hundreds of hours investigating it on my own before we ever came to JPR. And that's the thing, is everyone who calls you is innocent, but they're not. Yeah, and that's the thing. You can't jump to a conclusion. It's easy to hear somebody and say, "Oh, well, you're right, and DCFS is wrong." But DCFS a lot of times is wrong, and a lot of times there are kids who really need to be taken that are in some terrible situations. So we got to the bottom of that, and it was obvious that the Stanleys were innocent. And then when we began to look into it, the first thing we heard from the agencies was circle the wagons, and there's nothing wrong. That was the first testimony. And thankfully, we had some evidence, and we had many legislators, especially my co-chair, Representative Hammer, who backed me. And every time our back was up against the wall, someone came forward or some information came forward to prove we were on the right track. And it's brought us full circle to this. Now the agencies are working with us, have admitted that they had problems, and steered us to where those problems were. Cecile Blucher, the past DCFS director, got a lot of criticism, and maybe some of it deserved. But her testimony the day before she left her job was extremely. She came in and really laid out where the bodies were buried, laid out where the problems were, in every area. And in fact, not only is that recorded for anybody's Freedom of Information Act to get, we also have a transcript of it made. I thought it was important enough that you can get it in written form too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly. How long ago was that testimony? Because I'm not familiar with it.
I guess that's a year ago.
Oh, really?
I think it was March of last year.
Well, this is an example of one of the, I feel like, rare examples this session of real reform, and you had to really get your hands dirty and maybe expose some things that maybe make the government not look so good. But I want to commend you, Senator Alan Clark, for doing that, because I mean, obviously for the kids, for our children in this state. That's really what the program is designed to serve, and it actually needs to be doing that instead of, it's oftentimes just looks more adversarial, parents versus the government and that sort of thing.
Well, just the investigation. You have to give the legislators lots of credit who were tenacious. And I had to tell you, Senator Colin Smith, Senator Rice, Senator Stubblefield just stayed with me every step of the way. And because a lot of reforms already done without laws. Misha Martin, the new DCFS director, I mean, they are doing so many things as far as placing with parents. The judges, Kim Hammer and I really took it to the chin, black eyes. We took a beating when we subpoenaed the judge. But the judiciary has, since then, and not that they weren't always good people, but since this has been brought to the public eye, I know that they've had many meetings, or the meetings they would have had anyway, discussing these things, and they're doing a much better job of placing with parents. And
so the judicial branch kind of came together and said, "Hey, we've got an issue,"
yes.
Internally.
Yeah, they're again, all these folks care about kids, and so sometimes you have to have that catalyst, and that's what I think I've been. That's what I hope I've been, is the catalyst to say, we've got a problem, we got to do something about it. Mm-hmm. And I hope we've got some really good bills coming through that several we're going to pass. I hope we pass them all. But one of the best things that's come out of this is setting for the hours meeting with DCFS, CACD, AOC, the judges, the ad litem's, CASA, trial attorneys, and I'm leaving the governor's office, and I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out. And they have they have related to me over and over how much they've enjoyed this experience, that they actually, most of them came in either afraid of me or disliking me. And a lot of times they were just squabbling with each other. And that's not, I'm not saying they didn't work with each other, but some of these things just weren't getting worked out.
Yeah.
And as a senator, being able to sit everybody down at a table and referee and insist that we find a solution, I hope that's something I think that will go forward that will be very helpful on this.
So is time a factor here? Because I know the session is now winding down, and the Judiciary Committee has been clogged up. And I mean, your bills have been kind of put on the back burner, it looks like to me, for a long time.
They were only put on the back burner. Senator Hutchinson would have run them at any time because we were still working them out.
Okay.
Day in and day out, we were meeting, and once we got them to the point that either everyone was going to agree or we knew who wasn't going to agree, and we'd done everything we could, which is how we thought it would end, but it actually ended with everyone agreeing. We started running those bills, and that's why I said, about the guy that fallen past the second floor saying so far so good.
Okay.
is we're looking good. Is we've got the main bills out of judiciary. We've got a couple more to go through the Senate floor tomorrow. We've got them down in House committee. So everything goes well. We're going to pass the first 6 bills. Now we've got some more shell bills we're filling in now that I think are important, but they weren't as important as the first ones because in the legislature I always overload my plate. This is our football season. We only do this once every 2 years, so I always put more in than I can do. And then you have to prioritize. You have to say, okay, what can we get done? And so the most important bills are through. Now we're going to scramble in the last days to try to get the less important bills that are still important through.
Okay.
Knowing that there will always be work to do 2 years from now.
And I just want to again thank you for, doing this because there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of parents out there. They dread DCFS and encounters and so when all these get through and hopefully get passed, I'd love to have you back on and talk more about practically what all of this means. What does all this look like? And I would encourage people to wait and find out what the bills really do. I mean, we had one group of folks that are ready to lynch me after this bill passed yesterday, and they're good folks. They just simply don't know what the bill does. Yeah.
and it's so much easier to trade in rumor and so on. But these bills all do good things.
Yeah.
And so, again, I appreciate the time on with you.
Well, can I get one more question in
Sure.
before we go? This is unrelated to what we were just talking about, but just generally in the session, from a conservative standpoint, or at least my standpoint, talk about this. It seems there's a quest for revenue generation of some kind, whether it's a tax increase here or not a tax increase, or a fee increase on tires and that sort of thing. I mean, why? I mean, what are your thoughts on all that, first of all? And because a lot of liberty-minded conservatives are thinking, "Wow, what is going on?"
You know, I mean, people will be surprised to hear me say I'm not paying that much attention. I mean, working 16, 20 hours days on child welfare reform and education. You mentioned the tires. I think that's simply what it was. Is that system needed to be fixed? Representative Fide, who was one of my county judges in Saline County, I think was willing to take that on, and the fee needed to be increased to take care of it. I think that's all that was. There
was a new fee, though.
There does seem to be an underflowing current, though, to answer your question, that there are some folks, and again, this is pure conjecture on my part, and that there seems to be an underflowing current, that there's going to be revenue needed. I could only think it could be because of the Medicaid thing, and again, I don't know that, because you would stop just if it were me, and I'd say, okay, if we're going to have a revenue problem, why are we cutting taxes by $50 million to turn around and raise them by possibly more than that? But then again, sometimes I'm just too logical for this job.
No,
so
I think we're thinking on the same wavelength. Senator Alan Clark, I appreciate it, sir.
Okay, thanks for having me, Paul.
Folks, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment from the Marble Palace.